kasi dito, wow, I was a wreck. So, parang pagpasok ko dito,
Alex, can you tell us about the match earlier? Seems very interesting.
Yeah, it was super fun. My very first mix though.
Bali is totally different to other countries because cattle roam the streets. Cattle shit on the ground. People
destroyed on live television, a merciless media assault that nearly shattered Alexa until an utterly unexpected defender stepped forward. The cameras were live, the studio lights were blinding, and across millions of screens throughout the Philippines, one of the most trusted figures in broadcast journalism was about to unleash a statement that would send shockwaves through the global tennis community. What followed wasn't merely controversial, it was devastating, it was ruthless, and it was about to redefine everything for a 20-year-old tennis player already bearing the weight of an entire nation's expectations. Welcome back to Champions, Tennis, where we don't just report the news, we expose the truth that lives behind the baselines and beyond the scoreboards. Today's story is unlike anything we've ever covered. This isn't about rankings or draws. This is about national pride, media betrayal, political spectacle, and one young woman's fight to justify her place among the world's elite. This is the story of how Alexa became the epicenter of an international firestorm, how she was publicly dismantled by her own country's media establishment, and how the most improbable defender imaginable rose to protect her. If you're new, here, brace yourself. If you've been with us before, you already know. We don't pull punches. Let's step straight into the chaos. Picture the scene, the evening news broadcast, a sacred institution in Filipino households for generations. Families gathered around their televisions, trusting their anchors to deliver the day's events with fairness and integrity. And seated behind the desk was Mel Tienco, a broadcasting icon, a woman whose career spans decades, whose presence is as familiar to Filipinos as a member of their own family. She has guided the nation through political crises, natural disasters, and moments of collective triumph. By every standard, she is an institution. But on this night, something went disastrously wrong. The discussion turned to Philippine sports, specifically tennis, and more precisely, the rising star Alexandria. The topic shifted to the possibility of Eala representing the Philippines at upcoming major tournaments, including the US Open later in the year. It should have been a moment of pride, a rallying cry behind a homegrown talent who had already achieved what no Filipino player before her had in professional tennis. Instead, it turned into a public execution. With a dismissive flick of her hand, an unmistakable gesture of rejection, Tienco delivered her verdict. That single motion spoke volumes, heavy with sarcasm and disdain, communicating a message even before words were spoken. But the words came, and they cut deeper than any forehand or backhand Eala had ever faced. "Don't embarrass the nation," Tienco said, her tone razor-sharp. 4 words, simple, devastating, packed with implication. In Tienco's view, Alex Eala wasn't ready. She would fail. She would step onto the global stage and collapse under the lights, dragging her country's reputation down with her. Better not to try at all, the message implied, than to dare and risk humiliation. And it wasn't only what she said, it was how she said it. The sneer in her voice, the laughter that escaped as she entertained the idea of Eala competing with the world's best. This wasn't measured analysis. It wasn't tough love. It was mockery, delivered from a position of immense power. A veteran broadcaster using her platform not to uplift, but to belittle. For a brief, stunned moment, the tennis world froze. Then everything exploded. Social media ignited like a volcano, long overdue to erupt. Twitter descended into open warfare. Facebook comment sections became battlegrounds. The hashtag #RespectAlexa surged into trending lists almost instantly, driven by outraged fans, fellow athletes, and journalists who could scarcely believe what they had just witnessed. How did this happen? How could someone with Tienco's experience and influence weaponize her platform against a young athlete who had devoted her entire life to her sport? Alex Eala was no manufactured celebrity chasing headlines. She was a grinder, a fighter, someone who had been living out of suitcases and grinding through the professional circuit since her teenage years, trading a normal adolescence for endless hours on practice courts across continents. She trained at the elite Rafa Nadal Academy. In Spain, she competed in junior Grand Slams. She earned every ranking point through grit, discipline, and raw talent. And for that, she was told on national television not to try. The backlash was immediate and merciless. Critics exposed the hypocrisy of a media culture that demands results, but offers no support during the struggle to achieve them. They called out the damage done by placing crushing expectations on young athletes while publicly doubting their ability to succeed. And they questioned what purpose such cruelty served, beyond shock value and ratings, at the expense of a 20-year-old's confidence and mental health. Sports psychologists joined the conversation, warning of the severe toll public humiliation can take on an athlete's performance and well-being. Imagine preparing for the biggest matches of your life while knowing that, back home, one of the most influential voices in media has already branded you an embarrassment in waiting. Imagine walking onto court with millions watching, waiting, not to cheer, but to see if you fail. But the story didn't stop there. In truth, it was only just beginning, because what happened next was so unexpected, so wildly out of context, that it barely seemed believable. Enter Pauline Hanson. To those unfamiliar with Australian politics, Pauline Hanson is a lightning rod. The founder and leader of One Nation, she has built a career on controversy, blunt rhetoric, and unapologetic positions. Known for her hardline views, her Australia First messaging, and her willingness to ignite debate, Hanson is, by any definition, polarizing. She is also the very last person anyone would expect to defend a Filipino tennis player attacked by her own media. And yet, that's precisely what she did. In a move that stunned political analysts and left sports commentators scrambling, Hanson broke her silence with a public statement that stopped everyone cold. She wasn't discussing immigration, she wasn't talking nationalism. She was talking about Alexa, and she was furious. Hanson went all in. With the same intensity she brings to parliamentary battles, she launched a fierce defense of a 20-year-old athlete being publicly humiliated by her own country. She condemned the cruelty of Tienko's remarks. She spoke of the unbearable pressure placed on young competitors before they've even had a fair chance to perform. She argued passionately for support over sabotage. She is 20 years old, Hanson declared, her words carrying unmistakable force. She is carrying an entire nation on her shoulders. And instead of encouragement, she's met with ridicule and mockery. That is un-Australian and, frankly, unconscionable. The irony was staggering. An Australian politician, often criticized for her rhetoric about other nations, had stepped in to defend a Filipino athlete against Filipino media. As surreal as it sounded, it worked. The impact was instant and seismic. Overnight, the narrative shifted. This was no longer about whether Alex Eala belonged at the top level. It became a reckoning, a harsh spotlight on a culture willing to tear down its own athletes before allowing them the chance to succeed. The real embarrassment wasn't a potential loss on court. It was a media establishment so cynical, so devoid of belief, that it took a foreign politician to remind them what support looks like. International media seized the moment. Global sports. Outlets that had never paid attention to Philippine tennis suddenly took notice. The story spilled out of sports pages and into cultural discourse, becoming a case study in media ethics, national identity, and athletic representation. Opinion pieces followed, heated debates erupted, and one question echoed everywhere. How did things deteriorate so badly that Pauline Hanson became the voice of reason? Behind the scenes, reports began surfacing from within broadcasting circles, revealing the fallout inside Tienko's camp. According to sources, the veteran anchor was blindsided by the scale of the reaction. The criticism, the hashtags, the intervention from Australia. All of it forced a reckoning. Insiders described mounting regret as the reality set in. This wasn't a throwaway comment destined to disappear in the next news cycle. It was a defining moment, one that alienated younger sports fans and permanently damaged her standing as a champion of Filipino achievement. And then came the silence. No apology, no clarification, no attempt at damage control. Just an uncomfortable, deafening void, standing in stark contrast to the storm she had ignited. Meanwhile, the tennis itself was approaching fast. A win over Parks would push Eala into the second round, instantly matching her best-ever Grand Slam result and opening the door to surpass it. At this stage of her career, every ranking point is critical. Sustaining and improving a top 50 position depends on consistent Grand Slam performances. These wins secure direct entry into future majors, sparing her the exhausting grind of qualifying. rounds. But beyond points and rankings lies something far greater: legacy. Eala is a pioneer, charting territory no Filipino player has successfully navigated before. She's operating without a roadmap, and every step forward expands what's possible for those who follow. Young Filipino players are watching closely, seeing someone who looks like them competing on the sport's biggest stages. That burden of representation is enormous, and it becomes suffocating when your own media publicly doubts you. That's why this moment matters. If Eala delivers, if she wins and makes a run, it won't just justify her sacrifices. It will validate the dreams of every young Filipino athlete who's ever been told they don't belong, that they should know their place, that trying is more dangerous than failing. As Monday morning dawns in Melbourne, tension is peaking. Fans are circling the match. Filipino communities across the globe are setting alarms for the early start. Newsrooms are preparing coverage. And somewhere in the Philippines, Mel Tayenko and her colleagues are watching, perhaps questioning whether they made a catastrophic miscalculation. Everything is aligned. The stage is set. The controversy has reached its apex. This is no ordinary first-round Grand Slam match. Will the embarrassment narrative crumble under real achievement? Will Pauline Hanson's unlikely defense be proven right? Will Alexa rise above the noise and let her racket speak the final truth? We're about to find out, and you won't want to miss a second. Here at Champions Tennis, we'll be with you every step of the way. Tactical analysis, pivotal moments, post-match reactions, and press conference fallout. When Eala walks onto that court, we'll be there for every high, every low, every winner, and every heartbreak. But before the first serve, we want your voice. Where do you stand on this controversy? Did Mel Tayenko cross a line, or was she simply being bluntly honest? And did you ever imagine Pauline Hanson playing a role in this story? Most importantly, what's your prediction for Eala versus Parks? A straight set statement or a grueling 3-set battle? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. If this deep dive hit hard, smash that like button. Every like helps us reach fans who deserve the full story behind the headlines. And if you're new or still haven't subscribed, now is the moment. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, where the sport is covered with passion, integrity, and respect for the athletes who sacrifice everything to compete at the highest level. We'll see you in the next video, and we'll see Alex Eala on court in Melbourne. Do you like this personality?